Welcome to Smart in the City, the Babel podcast where we bring together top actors in the smart city arena, sparking dialogues and interactions around the stakeholders and themes most prevalent for today's citizens and tomorrow's generations. I am your host, Tamlin Shimizu, and I hope you will enjoy this episode and gain knowledge and connections to accelerate the change for a better urban life. Smart in the City is brought to you by Babel Smart Cities. We enable processes from research and strategy development to co-creation and implementation. To learn more about us, please visit the Babel platform at babel-smartcities.eu. So welcome everyone to actually our second episode focusing on the city of Vilnius, a city I've actually had the privilege of visiting for the first time recently. Highly recommend, by the way. In my first conversation, I was in Vilnius and I was speaking with a former mayor about regulatory reform, transparency, and governance transformation. So today we shift the perspective a little bit. We're taking a closer look at sustainability, leadership, climate policy, and implementation, and how Vilnius is operationalizing its ambition to be a European green capital. So joining me today, please give a warm welcome to nton, the Chief Sustainability Officer at the city of Vilnius in Lithuania. Welcome, Nton.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you too. We actually had the privilege of briefly meeting in Łódź, but we didn't get the chance to really deep dive into everything you're working on. So I'm really excited to hear from you how you're really turning all these lofty and ambitious climate plans into actionable outcomes on the ground, or at least trying to and putting it all into action. So, but first I'd like to get us started with a little bit of a teaser, a warm-up question to get us started. And for you, I have today, if you had to describe Vilnius's sustainability approach in just 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
I'd still say it's a greenest city in the making. It's actually what our slogan for the year of being European Green Capital. We actually have this slogan as an official one. It's actually a 2-part slogan. One is we're not the greenest city yet. And then it comes with greenest city in the making. So I think for us, sustainability is more of a process-oriented thing, which we really want to do. It's not like we want to do it slow because there's so much things happening around and there is so many things changing. And we see a lot of, climate change consequences that are already happening on our daily life. But that process is none less important so that we have more consensus and more understanding why we do that. It's not just doing that.
5 words, but not 3, but I give it to you.
Well, those are small, sorry.
Yeah, we don't count in and the. That's okay, right? Yeah, no worries. Good. I want to get to know you a little bit better. Give us a little bit of background on your role, where you came from also. How did you enter into the field?
As a Chief Sustainability Officer, that's quite a new position for the city. It's been 1.5 years, and before that, there were no such position at the city administration. So that's kind of a new thing for us. On one hand, but I've been working with different sustainability topics for almost a decade now, I'd say. I started working for the city as a chief officer for cycling infrastructure, or a cycling officer. Then one thing led to another. I was doing cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, then all the sustainable mobility. Then I took on a job of chief city engineer, of planning all the infrastructure for the city. And then eventually there was a need for this kind of position, and my knowledge of understanding the sustainability in a very general sense and understanding how the city works and operates was a very good fit, and I'm really glad I'm here now with a very broad topic, a very complex topic, but it's what it makes it exciting.
Yeah, maybe also a little follow up on that. I love how you've gone from micro to macro, but sustainability is such a topic. As you mentioned, it's broad. What does sustainability really mean to you?
Uh, I mean, we can talk about the classical understanding that sustainability is these environmental, social, and governance topics, or the targets we see. So it's not only the environment or the green part, which we really understand about sustainability, but it's also the very social thing and the way we achieve those targets. But for me, sustainability is actually really corresponds on a city level and on a very personal level. It's about quality of living. It's actually about making our environment not only livable and survivable due to climate change, but also a very more and more livable because more of us live in the cities, and more of us want to live a very good life there. So yeah, that's what sustainability is for me.
Yeah, very well put. Also, Vilnius right now is currently holding the title of European Green Capital. What does this recognition mean in practical terms, and how are you translating that into measurable outcomes for residents?
So I call this, sometimes I joke about it, and I call this Eurovision of green cities, and we happen to win, because
You got the champion
that's how it
title.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it actually works. You just you fill in the form, you fill in the application, which is actually quite a big document, which you have to show what you've done so far and what's your commitment for the future, and what your ideas are. How do you show that you are a green city? And then European Commission awards this title to you. So they kind of recognized our ambition and also the things we've been doing for quite some time now. I'd say almost a decade. So there's a lot of small sustainable actions, smaller or bigger ones as well. So there's a lot we're doing. And as for a very practical thing, I think this boosts understanding of sustainability among citizens, and I think we usually, especially those who work in sustainability, they tend to look at it from kind of, I wouldn't say a technical perspective, but from a very planned and here's the target, you are reaching it. I don't know, you are want to make your transport emission free, or your heating sector emission free, and so on, and you're just moving towards it, and that's how it's achieved. But on the whole city level, and my idea is that we really have to think about the human side of sustainability and how do we talk with the people and citizens, and that's the main target we kind of have internally. Especially there are targets and indicators that we have to measure: the air quality, the water quality, the biodiversity, and stuff which we also do measure. But then again, the main idea for us is actually have as many conversations as possible with our citizens, so that we have them on board on these topics, because these topics are, on a very general understanding. I don't think there is anybody who wouldn't say that well, being a green city is a bad thing. But when it comes to, to change of their habits, to their daily choices, to whatnot, then there is, that devil in the details. So we want to have these conversations, and very frank conversations, on smaller and bigger scales, on a very neighborhood level, and sometimes, just a small level, or on a city-wide discussion. As for instance, we're gonna have this first citizens assembly this year, this autumn. So there's different scales about talking about that, and also different topics, from sustainable fashion to cycling. It's like all range of topics. We want to do that. So that's what we're focusing on mostly, is having these talks. Not necessarily they will bring the instant results, but we feel like we really need to involve and have these open conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I love your human approach. It's been debated, right, it's kind of a tricky time when we're talking about sustainability and green policies right now,
Oh yeah.
with the current political climate, all of these things. People might argue, there's trade-offs when you talk about implementing green policies, like stricter regulations, maybe in some cases higher costs. People have to change their lifestyles, right, and change what they know. So how do you really ensure that your sustainability agenda doesn't alienate certain groups or create unintended social or economic barriers?
I mean that's a million-euro question, I guess, and for all of us, but that's I think where our approach to really try as hard as possible, and it's not always successful. I could be saying that, yeah, whatever we do, it's a very successful, and we usually, when we talk about good examples, it looks like, well, it was easy, to achieve, but usually
this is perfect.
there's
End of
yeah,
story. Yeah.
I mean, it is it is in a way, but on the other hand, there's always a process behind that, and I feel like having um having citizen involvement is the key there, because even though on a lot of cases we come up with similar results we would come up by ourselves, but then you have people on board, in the end, and that really works, on so many different levels. On the level where when we're designing a new street or a new park, right, and then the history show that, for a lot of time we've been designing it by ourselves, by the city or the architects or who else would be designing the things on a street level. But then you come and because there are procedures, official ones, you have to kind of talk with people and introduce the plans, and then the people are like, no, we don't want that change. But if we really take time with these processes of involvement, and of course there are really different ways to involve, and also not all the decisions are up to this really big consensus and really deep conversation and so on, because not everybody have time to do that as well. So that's another thing. But when you go through the process, then you come up with the best ideas you could at the time, and then you have people on board. So there's that, and of course sustainability in quite some cases it means changes on a personal level, but from the city perspective, when we look at it, for instance, I'd go to the transport sector, right? So for us, it's actually providing the alternative, the full range of alternatives to majority of people, or to basically all the people, and making the city less dependable on only one mean of transportation, which is usually cars, right? What cities we've for the past almost 100 years been developing into that direction, to make it accessible basically only by cars. So from the city perspective, it's actually looking at, okay, we do want to provide all the alternatives, all the possible alternatives there, and then it's up to the people's choices. But of course, there should be some things, and those are hard political decisions, if there is, the carrot and the stick. So we are still working more on the carrots than the sticks, I'd say.
Yeah, really interesting. Let's dive into that a little bit more on how you're activating citizen participation. Are there specific tools, different channels that you're using? What are all the different methods you're using?
So, I mean, the main method is whenever we design something or we want to redo something in the city, and it's not like just fixing something, but like redesigning and rethinking. So the main method is now more or less start with the early stage to get have several meetings with the community or with the stakeholders. and starting with just the idea of redesigning, and then getting to know how they use the space and what they want to see there. And there were, on a street level, sometimes it's like everybody wants everything. Everybody wants cars, trees, bicycle lanes, as many car lanes as possible, so that there's, that, like, people want everything. But then, okay, you just collect that, and then, or you just go to workshop and say, okay, let's fit that into, 12 meters, which is impossible to fit all of that. And then people start to think, and then, we don't want them to come up with the designs. Obviously, that's what people who do that. But then again, there is another meeting when we come with several designs or several ideas how we can change that, and then we discuss. So it's several stage discussion on these kind of levels. Sometimes it's just more like an informational one. We want to, in some Soviet era build up areas, we just are fixing the parking spaces, and we just say, okay, we're going to fix that. Maybe you have ideas where to, better do that because you use that daily. And then people say, yeah, you should just put something there, here and there, and that's it. And then we just, do it like that. And sometimes it's as I already mentioned, a bigger one, like a citizens' assembly, which is a really structured way of selecting. For us, it will be 50 randomly selected citizens from different social groups, age groups, and so on, so that we have all the representation of the city, and they will discuss the mobility topic as well. That's, we have basically two main topics in our sustainability agenda in general because of the greenhouse gas emissions. It's transport and energy sectors, which contribute to more than 90% of our CO2 emissions. So these are two sectors we really have to work on, and therefore, the mobility topic will be raised on the Citizens' Assembly. So the people will meet 7 times through the span of 4 or 5 months, and they will come up with a resolution. They will vote on that. They will draft the text themselves. They will be informed, of course, before that about different opinions and different ideas and different scientific and just stakeholder ideas about different ways of moving around the city, and they will come up with informed resolution and ideas. How do we really go towards reaching our goals in mobility? We have the goals to really change the way we move around the city. We've done quite some good job in cycling numbers, but other numbers are not as good as we would like them to see, so that the movement around the city is more balanced. So there are really different methods for every case, and I'm glad we have also a person responsible for citizen involvement in the administration. So and that's really beautiful. So that there are people dedicated to that, and they go through the process together.
Can you give 1 or 2 concrete examples of projects that you're working on, especially if you want to highlight the community engagement piece, but any kind of project that you're quite passionate about that you think would be interesting to share?
That's a good question. With the community engagement, I think the Citizen Assembly, I'm really passionate about it. I'm really waiting for the results, and I'm really looking forward to it. And it's our first time we do that. And from what we've seen around, from the examples, it's not a new thing. Cities or countries have been doing the citizens' assemblies. But I'm really looking forward to really see, because that's a topic that actually puts quite a lot of citizens into this love-hate relationship, or black and white and so on. And there is so many different colors of that, and that's actually one of the learning experience from the city of Vilnius. We've been doing quite some changes on a street level. For instance, during the last political period, before the election, and then during the election, all the sustainable initiatives were really used against against us, I'd say, in a way, because the discussion got really political. The discussion really got, in some cases out of hand, because even though we were, when you do street redesign, you want, street to be more appealing, with more greenery, with lower speeds and so on. And then there are quite some people that feel threatened of that, which is also natural. If they drive the car, they are used to speed on that street, and now they can't, and they become angry, and underestimating their feelings and their emotions was actually quite a big learning experience for us. So it's like it's looking and for the ways to really understand how do we communicate with them, and then what do we do, because sometimes. To be frank, now we sometimes really are way slower than we would be with some of our decisions, especially in mobility, on mobility topic, because there is this a bit of a, us as a city or city officials or politicians being a bit, I wouldn't call it afraid, but hesitant to make too quick decisions or too harsh decisions. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, you've spoken about mobility and street redesign. I'm just wondering if I'm really interested to also learn a little bit more about what projects you're working on as far as energy directly. Do you have an example from your work there?
On the energy sector, I think we're doing quite good, especially on the central heating and on the electricity level. So there are good things we can really be proud of. So one thing is that, for instance, all our streets are lit by renewable energy. Half of the municipal buildings are the electricity that is there is also from renewables, and we're working on the other half of that. So there is that. On the central heating level, we also have quite good results, and the company is moving towards being climate neutral by 2030, because now we only use, as of last year, we used only 17% of the fuel was natural gas. Other fuel was the rest. 83% was biomass and biofuel, so which is a renewable. So that's quite a big achievement for us, and most of the dwellings are connected to the central heating. So it's like we are really well spread there, and that's just a question of time and small initiatives and small things that are needed to be done, so that now it's small things. But that's also, from the energy perspective, looking from the energy perspective, for us, it's also part of our independence agenda or resilience, geopolitical resilience agenda as well. So it's like that as well, big time. And we're glad we kind of been moving towards that even before sustainability was cool, right? Even before, everybody talked about.
Know that it's cool now. I think it's cool, but
well, sometimes it's also overused now. I'd say the sustainability. It's also another big topic, because everybody wants to be sustainable, and there is a lot of greenwashing there as well. And I can't say we don't do some of the greenwashing as well. So it's like at some point there is this blurred lines, right? But from going back to the energy sector, so there's a lot of that, and there are small initiatives which are really significant. So two things which blow my mind every time. So one is that they take the residual heat from the smoke that comes out of chimneys, because the smoke is warm. So they take that residual heat and then use it through the system. So that's one part. And another part is they are just signed the agreement with our data centers, where servers would produce a lot of heat, and they will take that heat and also use that for city heating. So that's those are just a small fraction, but those are really I think that these kind of things, it's just looking, and the sustainability is also about this systemic approach and looking at all the things, and you just there's Otherwise, there is this heat from the servers which just goes to air, and we can just use it because it's there. It's free. It's basically free energy. So these kind of things I really love about that.
Yeah, really great examples. Thanks for sharing. In your work, I'm sure that you encounter many misconceptions as well. I think we were briefly touching on some stuff, but I would love to hear from you what you think are the biggest misconceptions that you encounter when it takes to becoming a truly sustainable city.
That's actually a really good question. I mean, on one hand, misconception is that sustainability is expensive. And I'd say, yes, it is expensive on quite some cases, because sometimes infrastructural change is quite expensive because, we've been working with infrastructure which was not prepared for that.
For upfront costs, though, right? It's upfront costs, but then in general, you get the money back over time.
Yes, yeah. That thing, and then So that, but also on the other hand, a lot of sustainability is about these creative solutions and looking at efficiency and how we effectively use our resources, and sometimes we just don't think about that. We've just had a talk with a colleague that there's the office building near us which is now putting the solar panels on the roof, and we're like, yeah, why don't they all do that, right? So it's it's the investment which really is now super cheap and produces quite a lot of energy. And yes, there are a lot of questions with the grids and so on. So there's, there are technical questions which are, relevant and so on. But in general, it's looking for these kind of, I'd say, solutions, the effective ones. But the cost is also, we never when we talk about sustainability and say, yes, it's expensive, we never estimate how much it would cost us in the future to do the same thing when it's now it sometimes feels urgent. For Vilnius, for instance, we had it's hard to talk about the warmth or the heat waves and so on, because we had a really cold June, but which is we would say, we call it cold June, but then it's so close to the normal average. So we are so expecting to have a warmer June, right? So it's really interesting thought process on one hand, but on the other hand, before June, we had already 18 anomalies, or 18 hottest days, record-breaking days in the country. Went through all last year, we had only 14 or 15. So we already through less than half year passed, and we broke those records. So that's a bit of a concerning thing. And of course, for us, maybe we don't have such big problems with the heat, because next week we're gonna have 33 degrees, so that's quite hot. And then we only for the past couple decades started to have these tropical nights when during the nighttime the temperature doesn't drop less than 30 or 20 something degrees. So it's these kind of things. So I think investing into mitigation later will be way more expensive than investing now. And also, in not being prepared and not investing today means also other costs. Okay, heat waves is one thing, but another, for instance, for us, climate change consequence is the flooding risks, which will cost a lot of money to, if that happens, if we are not prepared enough, if we do not invest enough into both infrastructure, but also the nature-based solutions, so that we can keep that water somewhere and just not get flooded. So there's that, so that will cost us in insurance money, in just direct costs of taking care of infrastructure after that, and then and then there are all smaller ones, the storms and whatnot, which will indirectly also so. The investment which we are not doing today, or the tree which we are not planting today, is actually going to cost us way more in the future.
I really like that perspective and the way that you're looking at that. I think the challenge is getting people to understand a cost that has not yet incurred. And so
it's so hard.
It's so
almost
hard
impossible.
It's so hard to get people to understand a future cost, right?
Yeah.
To visualize this, to conceptualize this, to put this into numbers and put this, you can make predictions. And I think a lot of people are doing really great work at making the predictions on the costs in the future. But this hasn't gone mainstream yet. So we need to put this messaging out there.
But I mean, just to add on that, I had this discussion with peers from across the globe on one of the conferences. And actually, the cities that had some really bad situations, or the countries that all of a sudden were not prepared for the, forest fires, for floods, for really harsh heat waves, like the ones that are, or the droughts or whatever. So then there is this momentum, sadly, but they all say, yes, that was the momentum when we really kicked off our climate investments, because people really felt the thing. I would like not to come to that moment where we're, well, that is a momentum, not our common sense or whatever. But sadly, I think that's also part of human nature. That's us not, if we don't see the immediate threat, that's the future threat. Well, maybe we'll get over it somehow,
Yeah, absolutely. We need to change this mindset somehow. I just don't know how.
I know. If any of the listeners know how, please do share.
Please tell us. Please let us know. Exactly. I want to ask you, what you're making really great strides, it sounds like, with a lot of the work that you're doing, for example, in energy. But you still, I'm guessing, have some challenges remaining. And I think we've touched on them, but I'd like to dig into that and be very concrete. What do you think are your main bottlenecks, challenges that are really getting in your way of reaching, for example, climate neutrality by 2030? And are you missing any tools? Like, what do you need to accelerate that? Is it funding? Is it more innovation? What do you think you need? Another €1 million question.
I mean, well, that's a €1 billion question, I'd say. Or several billions.
So that's what you need, is the several billions, and then you're set.
And then it's easy, right? On one hand, it is a bit of a financial question. How do we do the investments? And I mean, on quite some levels, on a city. On the things that city is responsible for really directly, right? For instance, if it's public transportation, if that's a heating sector, if that's water management or whatever, I think we're kind of good, and we are planning the investments, and we are looking for sources to get those investments financed, and we both, we've prepared the plan for the climate neutrality as part of the EU cities mission. It's 100 cities that are selected to be kind of these pilots for preparing the climate neutrality plans, and then see how much money is needed and then what actions are needed. But we also prepared this Green City Action Plan with the bankable, I'd say, investments. So those are kind of EBRD bank approved investments that we could go and ask for financing with the financial institutions, not only with public funds or semi-public funds. So it's like we're looking for different ways of doing these investments. But I always say that money is the easiest part here, and I will just keep on coming back to the people side of that, or to human side of that. And I don't feel we still have enough support for our like real climate change, the change for the better environment and climate, because that means a lot of change on the personal level of people. So, for instance, to achieve, the goal of being climate neutral in transport sector, yes, we can do, and we will do. We will have all our public transportation carbon or emission free, right? We can, but then again, there are businesses who have to change, and there is some legislation for we can implement this zero emission zones in the city and so on. But then that's also a political decision. There's also that. But then again, the vast majority of the transport sector is private cars for us. So how do we really make people use cars less, first of all, and then if they still use car, use not a fossil fuel car? That's another question, and that's a lot of investment from their money. And then we do on the national level, we do have some subsidies for acquiring the electric car. They get subsidies for parking in the city. They can use some of the bus lanes in the city. So there are also these soft measures, to do that. But then the percentage is still quite small. We're also investing into charging infrastructure so that the people can have some public spaces where they can charge the car overnight, especially if it's not a newly built development which has already possibility to have the charging there. So if it's older built up areas, we do have to find places for charging. So there's that part. On an energy level, that's the same. Okay, we can transform our central heating sector, but then again, we have a lot of buildings that are energy inefficient, and we have to, how do we renovate them? And then that also, it's personal costs of people who are, counting their own money and having these decisions. And there's quite some big part of that. So I feel like we still have to have more discussions, and those take time, and have this really understanding. On professional level, we say it's capacity building, right? It's like you just teach your peers, and everybody knows. So it's a capacity building within the communities and within the citizens. And I think that's the main and the hardest part. Because then I feel like if we have most or the vast majority of people on board with their daily choices, but also with their understanding on a political level, then it might get easier, to kind of, because the politicians also have to feel the support of people in these actions. And if there is, this 50-50, then it's easy to start doing just a very small or the things that are the easiest to do, and don't raise too many discussions on the city level. And there are a lot of hard discussions that need to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're trying to do that this year. We're trying to do those this year, and and then really, really go and talk. And that's usually not easy.
Yeah, some very big challenges with the citizen engagement and behavior change piece. I think that all cities are encountering. Also, a shout out to any listeners. Have you solved that? Let us know.
But I mean, we all know, for instance, Paris example, right? Which really used a lot of momentums. It's also the Olympic Games. They really, really use that for that, but there is also a lot of resistance there as well. So it's like we see a very beautiful picture from, and then a bit of a jealousy how they did that. But then again, we see that there's so many protests about that and so on, and they have to reframe what they're doing. And I talked with the colleagues, for instance, about the street redesign. So they've been going, yes, let's redesign streets. And then they're like, there's a lot of resistance, and they're like, yeah, let's do the school streets now because it's the kids and so on. So it's like also reframing the way you talk. But then another thing with Paris, which actually really interesting, I think we never take into consideration, is that their mayoral term is 6 years. So you have kind of enough time between the election cycles to do some change and to have adaptation period. In our case, it's 4 years. So it's like, even if you day one start planning something on a very well working system, you can have results year 3 only, and 1 year is usually not enough for this adaptation and this seeing the best results time. So that's also a big challenge, I think, on a political level, and that's for us as the city, as a civil servants, as the city workers, is to kind of be smart as well on preparing the plans for the future. And if there is a good opportunity to just start implementing them day one, so that we have enough time. So that's also, it is hard. It also requires a lot of resources, but I think that could be a possibility to work.
I really like what you touched on as far as reframing how we communicate. I think it's so important. I see a lot within our EU kind of mobility bubble of people talking about, car-free zones and things along those lines. And to me, I'm like, it's not a car-free zone. It's an area for local business to thrive, right? This is an area for people and local business to interact on a deeper level, rather than saying car-free and using words that really resonate with people and across the board on all sorts of the political spectrum. So I really like what you touched on there. With that, we come to the end of our main interview, and for next step, I have a segment for you. The segment that I've chosen for you today is called Trial and Error.
Trial and error. What went wrong? What mistakes were made along the way? And more importantly, what lessons were learned?
So it's when you get to share with us maybe a key lesson that you learned along the way. Have something in mind?
I think, yeah. I think it also will be connected with the citizen engagement and not engagement. I would. There was this thing. Okay, so trying to do that properly. So we had this idea to have. We have a beautiful old town. If you've been to Vilnius, you know that it's amazing.
Beautiful.
If somebody haven't been to Vilnius, please do come and enjoy that. And for, I don't know, maybe 2 decades, maybe less, in a lot of our plans, which were related to mobility or whatsoever, or just city general plan, master plan. So there was idea to cut the car transit through the old town, because it was always possibility to just go through. It's a nice scenery, not only to walk but to go by car as well, and that way, a lot of people were avoiding some of the traffic lights and just transiting the old town, which is UNESCO protected and stuff. So we had that for a long time in our plans, and nobody were making any decision to really start implementing that. But then COVID came, fortunately and unfortunately. So fortunately, because then there was this sudden need, which we already forgot that, but there was this sudden need for more public spaces for people to go somewhere. And at the time, after I think the first lockdown, the summer came, and the city of Vilnius said, okay, if you can't be inside, inside the restaurants and so on, but you can be outside. So let's have Vilnius, and especially the old town, as the biggest outdoor cafe ever. And we just deregulated all the outdoor cafes, and we said, you just bring your tables and you're fine. So just, so that people can just enjoy, and then the businesses can, thrive, because those were hard times. And then with doing that, we saw that, okay, that transit traffic isn't a nice thing. And people also kind of had that feeling that transit traffic isn't good, isn't a good thing. And then there was this idea, maybe we should start and just implement that that action of cutting the transit or implementing this loop circulation in the old town, meaning that you enter through one road, it's a one-way street, and then you exit through the nearest exit from the old town, and you just can't cross it. So you just make it, from the different. You can still access it by car. You can still go if you live there and so on, but you can't just, you will have to go around it if you don't need to. You don't need anything to do in the old town. So there was this political support on that as well, because there was a momentum, and we used that, and we introduced that loop circulation plan. And that worked quite well. It did cut the traffic by 40%. It actually had a good support from businesses, from most of the businesses. And then we did the surveys, and then more than 90% of businesses said, yeah, it's a good thing because, either due to that or all everything, there are still clients, nothing, bad is happening because of that. There were some businesses that said, well, because people can't park near my place, they don't go to my place anymore. So, which is doubtful always, but then, but that's their feeling, and that's also valid. I feel we shouldn't invalidate these kind of feelings. Mm-hmm. And everything was going quite well. But what we didn't do, so we didn't sit down with all the stakeholders, which are important. So one of the stakeholders, we were thinking about the businesses, we were thinking about residents a bit, but we weren't thinking about the heritage protection people, who suddenly got angry because we cut the traffic with a very, very basic things. We just put some poles, we just put some planters with the trees, so that you can't physically cross between the different loops, because you just have to organize that. Otherwise, if you don't control that, people will still be I'll go there, and so on. And another huge group we haven't talked with was the firefighters, who were so angry that they can't go through, and they're the emergency service and so on, and that was this thing. And then at the same time, we were doing quite a lot of street reconstructions, and then by reconstructing the street or street redesign, we're really narrowing down the car lanes from a very generous 4.5 meters to these normal 3 or 3.25 meters, so that the cars can go slower and so on. And then in some places we didn't design it well enough, and there were some turn radiuses that were too small or against the habit of being large, and so on. So these kind of things, and then firefighters were angry about that as well. And then so a lot of people, and there was this growing momentum of that. And we underestimated that momentum. And we said, well, is that a problem? Because if you're a fire, if you need to go as an emergency service, you can just go through the side part of the sidewalk. You just can, there are some poles which can be hit by a fire truck easily, and there would be no damage to fire truck, and we're okay with that. And so these kind of things. And of course, some places we said, yeah, we can move the planters so that you can go through more easily and so on. So it's like these kind of things. But then then that kind of thing was the underestimation, because we just got to learn eventually when everything a bit went out of hand. When we just understood that there is a huge change in human resources there in the drivers, and the driver that is not has not enough practice. It's really hard for them to do that, right? And to go around narrower spaces and so on. So there was that. So there was a lot of underestimations and not like having everything. And then again, we kind of made as I say. Quite some people angry unintentionally. For instance, the cyclists were not happy enough because they were not, some of the surfaces weren't fixed, and and there were no exact plan when are we going to fix that. Then I think one of the most important groups we underestimated was the journalists, because most of the journalists, they drive cars, and they also all of a sudden felt threatened and so on. So it's like it was all these kind of things we really didn't think through, and I think that's a good learning experience for us now to really think about all the groups, which we might not even think directly. We just do. We were doing everything according to the law, in like onto this general understanding of that's enough width to go for everybody because that's in some of the technical regulations. But then again, reality is a bit different. So then talking and engaging not only citizens but also the stakeholders, different people. And I feel like with journalists we sometimes lack that understanding, because we really do have to understand. Yes, a lot of journalists they do move in different ways, and then some say their daily stories which are really valid, and they say I live in this part of the city, and if I need to go to work by bus at 5 o'clock in the morning, it's important. It's impossible. It's because it's a morning radio, radio or whatever. And then you're like, yeah, I feel you. That's true. So it's like these kind of things as well. So I think working with that group, even separately and building capacity there could have been a really good thing, which we didn't think through. Sitting down with a firefighter department would have also been better. So not taking into consideration all the stakeholders, but then again, it's also a political, just not even a political. Sometimes it's a technical decision. You just have to do that because because the results are still here. So we still have the loop circulation plan. That's fine. We removed some of the barriers. We kind of eventually did a lot of amendment, changes to that, but it took us time as well to understand that we have to do that. So we were kind of, we're seeing the good results and we're feeling like everything is fine, when in the background, the temperature was rising and boiling. So
Yeah, really good reminder to consider all of the groups and really sit down and think on who are really all the stakeholders, because sometimes we just forget about certain groups, right?
Totally.
So that's a really good reminder. So thanks so much for sharing that story and the lesson. Now we come to our final question. It's the question we ask every single guest that comes onto the show. And it is, to you, what is a smart city?
A smart city? A smart city. It's rather an easy question. It's the city where you feel good, because I feel like a smart city is not about the technology again. It's about the people who are happy to live there and who have, of course, technologies can help tremendously in a lot of cases. From online services that you don't need to go anywhere to get your service, to get your whatever done in the city and so on. But the smart city is also the place where you feel good and you have nice environment to live in and nice communities to be there, and nice places, good places. And for us, it's also a green city. So the greenest city in the making.
Greenest city in the making. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Anton. It was really fun talking to you, getting to know more about Vilnius. I mentioned at the beginning, but I really, truly fell in love with the city. I was telling everyone, this is Europe's best kept secret. You need to go visit Vilnius. And you're doing amazing things within the sustainability field. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and stories with us today.
Was a pleasure. But also, did you try the pink soup?
Yes, of course I did. Yeah. Yes, it was very delicious.
Awesome. So
question. Yeah.
I know that's the most important one, but so that people, have this hook and think about the pink soup. We're having, that we have the pink soup festival.
Yes, I saw I think a sign for it or something when I was there.
Yeah.
I think it was happening after I was leaving though. So I didn't get the chance to attend, but maybe another time. So
so that's another hidden gem of Vilnius. So Yeah,
Love
but
it.
it was pleasure to talk, and to share. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, you're welcome back. And also thank you to all of our listeners, of course. Wouldn't happen without you. And don't forget, you can always create a free account on baba-smartcities.eu. You can find out more. You can find all of our podcasts there too, by the way. You can find out more use cases, solutions, implementations, and more. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for listening. I'll see you at the next stop on the journey to a better urban life.